the witnesses or some other people, no? So the court will be cognizant of that he has a lot of interest, a lot of supporters here, even in The Hague, no? So they would, I think, be careful in granting any interim release.
Yeah, I mean, and my understanding is tatanungin din yung ibang potential witnesses and tsaka victims, no, if they will
Yeah,
feel
the
safe.
victims, yes, the
Yeah,
victims
if
will.
you will feel safe if this guy is released. Kasi next thing na, baka yayarin kayo sa Pilipinas or kung saan, di ba? I actually met yung kapatid ng isa sa mga biktima, one of the more prominent biktima na kinover ng international media kagabi. So it was quite an intense conversation. And you could see na hanggang ngayon, yung mga pamilya ng mga witnesses ay natatakot or they're still worried. They don't feel safe completely about coming out and sharing their stories kasi nga hindi lang sila na dehumanize online and offline, hindi lang sila ina-attack, but you never know about the situation. So medyo nakakatakot pa rin. I could see the chilling effect is still there considering the vice president is also a Duterte, right? So technically speaking, it's always possible another Duterte will be back in power. Justice, let me pivot back to the Philippines. What is your read of the whole Amy Marcos hearing? I don't know what to call it. I mean, with attorney Jingoy, with international law expert Cayetano. I mean, who was that lawyer na kinuha nila? Like, sino tong mga product? I mean, sino tong mga to? Just, I cannot even Google their names. Saan sila pumupulot ng mga legal minds
Mhm.
to argue their case? Did you see the meme yung sinend ko sa'yo? It's like a 50,000 likes and all. Yung parang may jurisdiction ng ICC, you are Raul Pangalangan, ganun. Tapos sa baba, walang jurisdiction ng ICC, Robin Hood Padilla, yung mga ganun. So, medyo nadadagdagan, ha? May mga nilalagay din sila mga attorney doon sa baba. Who are these people, Justice?
Well, the main issue there is uh, okay, there is that law 98 Republic Act 9851 which authorizes the government at the discretion of the government to surrender the accused if there is already a case filed in an international tribunal. So the issue really is that law sufficient, or do you have to get a warrant of arrest from a local judge? I mean, because Republic Act 9851 is silent. It doesn't say that you have to when you are surrendering to an international tribunal. But when uh, you extradite an accused to another country, there is a requirement. You have to follow the extradition law of the Philippines, which means you have to file a petition with the RTC, with the local RTC. So, as I said, it could go either way. And that is the very core of the issue there in that Senate hearing. So I think that will be decided by the court anyway, whether a warrant of arrest is required in addition to Republic Act 9851. So that's basically the whole issue there.
So, basically, you're saying medyo may silence pa ang existing laws natin. So,
And there is no precedent. There is no
uh,
prior decided case. So, as I said, it could go either way, but it will not help Duterte because the rule in ICC is they don't inquire into how you were brought to the ICC. If you're before the ICC, they will prosecute you. As long as the ICC was not responsible, did not participate in any irregularity in arresting you uh, in a foreign country, no, in another state, and of course they had nothing to do with the arrest here. So with the surrender here, it was a voluntary act of the Philippine government. So that issue before the Senate committee now, it will not really affect uh, the trial in the Hague.
but it will have an implication for the next. Last time
Yes,
I heard that
correct.
up to 9, if not 11 other people could also be within the crosshairs. I mean, hindi lang si Pebbles. Ay, sorry, hindi lang si Bato de la Rosa. A couple of other people. Tingin ko minsan, Justice, si Bato de la Rosa ginamit ng pang-distract. Like, while everyone is looking at Bato, iba yung mga dinadampot. I mean,
Yeah,
they
you are, yeah, you're absolutely right. it will have an effect on the subsequent people who will be arrested or surrendered. So that is still a live issue as far as the other uh, people to be arrested. No, and I think their names are there already in the warrant of arrest, but they were just redacted. The names were redacted, so we know that there are others who will be arrested.
Pero pang redacted, di ba, you can see the length of the like redaction. Like, wait lang, parang kasya ba si ganito, ganyan. I mean, you could make some good bet, di ba? Sino itong mga redacted names. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying, Justice. Tapos na. Basically, I was told by folks in the Hague, game over na for Digong. Do you buy that? Basically, game over na daw. Ay, malaban na daw makauwi to or something. Yun na yung retirement na, basically. Do you think it's too optimistic for people to say that? Or rather, too
Yeah,
uh,
well,
fatalistic, yeah.
well, I agree with the VP Sara that it's very unlikely, highly improbable that former President Duterte could return here. Because even if he's acquitted, that will be 6 years from now
And he's
at the
80 tomorrow.
earliest.
And he's 80 tomorrow, yeah.
Yeah,
And
and he will be 86. And with the kind of evidence and all of those admissions that he made, I think he will get convicted. No?
and you're looking at what, 25 to 30 years? If ever
30 years.
30
30
years,
years minimum. But then
110 years old.
because of the gravity of the offense, he could be given life imprisonment.
Well, I mean, 30 years is 80 plus 30 plus 6 years of trial. That's 116-year-old. I mean, unless meron siyang yung whatever is Enrile using, I think this is where Enrile comes handy. I think Enrile, yung stem cell yan or whatever they're using, Justice. But I think stem cell works. I've seen it with some people. Hindi ko na pangalanan. Parang wait, parang bumata ito nung nakikita ko ng bata ako, parang mas bata siya ngayon. Mukhang malapit naman ng Germany if you want to do stem cell. Pwede ba mag-stem cell yung mga ano, yung mga convicted or ano, Justice? Are they given that kind of privilege?
Well, I don't know if you want to stay longer there. If you are in jail already for life, I don't know if you want to live that long.
116 years old. Well, you never know with anti-aging technologies coming, Justice. Anything is possible. So I look forward to talking to you for the next 20, 30, 40 years, Justice, God willing, about what's gonna happen here. But if you're younger person, right? If you're bato or like whatever, you're in 60s, baka ma-survive mo pa yung 20, 30 years na yan, di ba? So I think they have a stake, right, in making sure things move in the right direction. Can the other principal people spill the beans on the others to give themselves some reprieve? Is that also possible, or it's too late now? They're past the quantum, the threshold of getting any.
Well, they can turn state witness, but they are the principal. So I don't know the rule in the ICC. Here in our country, you must not be the most guilty, no? Yeah. So here they cannot if it were before our court, but I do not know if they will that's applied there in ICC.
Now, let's transition back dun sa hearings because I think we all know what was going on with that hearing. Obviously, as we speak, officially hindi na kasama sa alyansa si Amy Marcos, and to be honest, I don't think she's welcome back in any major Ilocano-speaking region from what I gather from our fellow Ilocanos, if I can put it that way. At mo malabo rin siya sa mga DDS sites. So it looks like mo malabo na si Amy Marcos. But nevertheless, having said that, I found the interventions very illuminating by government officials. No? Kasi Remulla, Crispin Remulla, mamaya na si John Vic. But Remulla said something like, our views are evolving, nag-fail yung justice system natin. You know, those were quite an interesting revelations, if I can put it, right? Or admissions, rather, confessions. How important are those, Justice, in terms of the next steps forward? Because many people are arguing, okay, if the justice system really failed, then why not rejoin ICC? Why not do some major judicial reforms? And why not form a truth commission? Kumbaga, go on a redemption arc. Because as we speak, Justice Carpio, medyo nahirapan ako. I'm actually here in Europe to also discuss parang tignan mo, Justice, parang tayo nagbubuhay sa The Hague, landmark case, West Philippine Sea. Ngayon, ICC, practically every major landmark case, Pinoy ang involved. Di ba? It's crazy. Pero ang problema ko, yung kay Pinoy, may principled position. Yung ngayon, medyo hapyaw di ba? So,
Yeah.
how can we make it more credible? Kasi ang positioning ko dito sa Brussels, among others, is we are principled, kumbaga, defenders of rules-based order. But slightly, I'm having a problem with the positioning of the government. How can we fix that?
Well, right now, we are in a good position because even if we have already withdrawn from the Rome Statute, we have this Republic Act 9851, and it's working. We can surrender the accused if there's a warrant of arrest issued by the ICC. So it worked. I mean, nobody thought that Duterte would land in the Hague, in a jail in the Hague. But it worked, even if we're not a member of ICC now. Now, even if we have not rejoined, it still can be done. So we can tell them, well, even without rejoining, the accused has been brought to the Hague. So, well, but my personal opinion is I think we should rejoin uh, to make it easier. But right now, if they cannot complain that we are not a member because we did deliver the guy there. No.
We did deliver the goods, the best thing, the best goods they're gonna have. I don't know about Harry Roque voluntarily going there, but we delivered the goods, the involuntary goods. Justice, again, going back to this, do you think that that hearing was also illuminating? Because one thing I appreciated dun sa conversation natin last time is when you say the justice system failed, before even going to the courts, your former branch, judiciary, dapat pag-usapan yung preliminary steps. Step 1 and step 2 pa lang, di ba? This is entirely executive, di ba? Looking at the
Yes.
fact of the case, filing charges, DOJ na yan, PNP na yan, or NBI at some cases, right? So I think in a way, hindi naman na-vindicate, pero na-reaffirm lang what you've been telling us that when you say justice system, this is not just the judiciary, right? So you think that was important, right? For Crispin Remulla to
Yes.
be out there and reveal
It,
yung mga doctoring of all the numbers and mumbo-jumbo that
yeah. That's really the rationale for the existence of the ICC. In a situation where the the perpetrator of the crime against humanity is the head of government himself, who controls the investigatory arm, the prosecution arm. So nobody will investigate him, nobody will prosecute him. That was really the situation when Duterte was the president. Nobody could move against him, and even we also have that rule, that the jurisprudence that a sitting president cannot be sued civilly or criminally. So nothing can really move. So the requirement of the Rome Statute that the ICC will come in if the state is unable or unwilling to investigate and prosecute in good faith. At ito, unable because there is a bar. The law says you cannot investigate a
So
sitting president.
structural, yeah, structural yung bar, not only political will, yeah.
Yes, there is a statutory bar. I mean, uh, by law, you cannot. So it's really justified. The entry of ICC is really justified.
Yeah. But also the admission that nakulang talaga ng executive branch in terms of taking care of the basics, right? Including yung evidence gathering. Tampered daw yung evidence. I think
Yeah,
General
and
Torre.
and
Yeah.
and the DOJ Secretary Remulla made a very interesting revelation. He said about 5 years ago, during the time of Duterte, the DOJ transferred all the records of the extrajudicial killings to the ombudsman, and it's been sitting there.
That's
And
another one we have to talk about. Di ba soon up for ano rin, new leadership din ng ombudsman? I mean, maybe that's an important thing we have to also mention, right? Yeah.
yeah, well, there will be a new ombudsman by August of this year.
This is very important, Justice. But then again, I mean, para hindi ito lumabas na I'm here basically lawyering for the judiciary. But to the degree that the judiciary itself was involved, sa tingin niyo ba nagkulang din ang justice system natin, justice? Because I completely take your point, and I think Crispin Remulla was perfectly fine. I know these are your former colleagues, this is your institution, but in a moment of self-reflection, sa tingin niyo ba nagkulang din? Because some people would find some of the even Supreme Court rulings as a bit, um, I won't say
Well,
evasive, but not as decisive and robust as people would have expected them on key issues, including withdrawal from the ICC by Duterte.
well, whatever you say about the Supreme Court, you have to remember that in their ruling in Pangilinan versus Cayetano, the court unanimously declared that the ICC has jurisdiction for offenses committed while we were a member, and that was the exact period when Duterte was being charged for those offenses for the EJ case during those period. No, so that saved the case. That statement of the court.
That residual jurisdiction argument.
Yeah, yeah. So and that was that portion of that decision was very good. It complied with the Rome Statute, and that's how it should be interpreted. So that's why Duterte will have a hard time because it was a unanimous decision of the court that all those EJ cases that happened when we were still a member could be prosecuted by the ICC, and that's our Supreme Court saying that.
And you think that was definitely decisive. And Justice, what is your take of this on this debate na since Digong lumabas dun sa ICC by basically unilateral executive action without concurrence of the Senate, and let's be honest, the Senate takot kay Digong yung time na yan. I think everyone knows that fact. Is it possible for BBM to, through executive action, just basically reactivate our accession to the Rome Statute so that it doesn't have to go through Attorney Jinggoy, through Judge Cayetano, through international law expert Amy Marcos? You know, well, mukhang wala na si Marcos by next Congress. But do you get what I'm saying, Justice?
Well, I think if we rejoin, that needs concurrence of the Senate because rejoining means it's exactly like joining for the first time. And I think the senators would eventually be convinced to rejoin because if we don't rejoin, we are left with the Republic Act 9851, which was the law used against Duterte. In other words, you can just be picked up and sent there. While if you are a member, we are a member of ICC, there's a requirement that if there's a warrant of arrest, the state will have to go to the judiciary to get an order to send him to ICC. So they will be more protected. You will be more protected if we are a member than now. No.
Which is the debate within the DDS camp, diba? Basically, Sarah is saying we have to engage the process, right? And if you're Bato de la Rosa, who's almost certainly facing something, like you would rather us have us still within the framework of ICC, diba? Para ma-invoke mo yung provisions rather than
Yes.
outside and denying the reality
Yeah.
that you could face.
That's why it's a very, very ironic that Duterte is now saying, well, the ICC under Article 59 says that you have to go to the local court first to get an order. He's now invoking the very treaty that he terminated. So it's a very ironic. If he did not terminate it, he could use that argument. But now he could not use that argument because he terminated the treaty.
Justice, irony is irony is a nice way of putting it. Irony, I won't say hypocrisy, but irony is the middle name of the Duterte camp. I mean, these are the people are saying Justice Carpio. Comparing to Ninoy Aquino, apparently that's not even enough. They're comparing him to Andres Bonifacio. Bayani daw si Justice Carpio. I think I was kasi andun ako sa detention center and I was looking around. Ang ganda ng mga bahay, quaint yung houses, inis na inis yung mga kapitbahay kasi ang daming dumarating. They're never used to that. They don't have that. You know, there's a detention and then like daksaan ng tao, and I think worry ng ibang tao baka maglagay ng statue of Bayaning Digong or something dyan sa detention center. I mean, that's how ridiculous it is. nowadays when it comes to our friends in that particular camp. So I'm not very surprised. Towards the
Yeah.
end, yes, yes,
Well,
Justice.
you can probably put there in that statute that here is our hero who killed 30,000 of his countrymen.
And therefore, you judge the people who treat him as hero. Wala kami masabi dyan, right? Like if that's the person who's your hero, then medyo may problema tayo dyan. Just to be honest, just towards the end na tayo dito. Again, gusto kong balikan itong issue ng mga biktima because one thing I've really noticed, and this is really troubling, Justice Carpio, is itong nakikita kong false sympathy or asymmetric sympathy. I mean, we saw that already with conflicts like in Gaza, among others. Maraming Ukraine versus Gaza, positioning West. But here in the case of the Philippines, parang ang dami kong naririnig, including hindi Duterte supporter, including mga nagbibili ako ng quote bago pumunta dito sa ICC Hague. Nakilala ko ng mga tao, Sir, pupunta ka pa sa Hague? Kawawa naman si Digong, matanda na, ganyan, ganyan, ganyan. Tapos, syempre, a part of me was saying, napanood niyo ba yung video niya sa Hong Kong at saka yung last year na sabi niya, upakan niya yung ICC. So parang ang daming naawa kay Digong. I understand in our culture, respect for the elderly, for seniors. I've been very close to my lola and my grandparents, so I understand that soft spot. Pero parang, are people even bothering to hear the story of yung mga biktima? Last night, I met the sister of one of the victims, and 8 years na, she's still traumatized. People are having mental problems, and talagang buong pamilya ay apektado talaga. It's an intergenerational trauma. But mukhang people are not paying attention to those victims. Do you think a creation of a kind of a truth commission na everyday invite these people, give them safe space and protection? Kasi takot din daw yung ibang biktima magsalita, baka babalikan sila ng ibang pulis or ma-implicate yung ibang pulis na hindi principal. What do you think about that role of the state to create a safe space for kind of a truth commission? And this is going to be a
Well,
year
yeah,
before.
this has something to do. Well, essentially, this is about due process. No, uh, the victims of EJ case, they were not given due process. They were just shot right there in their house or in the streets. They were begging for to give that they be given time to explain that they are not addicts, that they are not pushers. Even Kian, he said, I still have an exam tomorrow. I mean, if you're thinking of your exam, you're not an addict. I mean, you're thinking of your studies. So they were not given due process. And here is Duterte now, who is demanding due process, and he isn't even being subjected to death. He's just given a fair trial, and he's demanding a due process from the very from you know these his supporters are saying, uh, well, the others were not given due process because they were just ordinary people, but this is the president. We have to give him due process. I mean, that's totally uh, uh, unjustified because due process should be given to everyone. I mean, if you give due process only to the president, then the entire nation, 120 million people, will not get due process. And what kind of a society is that? So we have to tell our people due process should be given to everyone, should be accorded to everyone. And that's one of the failures of the Duterte administration. They just killed without giving due process. Now you can see Bato, Duterte, they're all asking for due process. I mean, we just have to explain why due process is important.
Yeah, exactly. Not only due process, I mean, the treatment here in The Hague, right? The facilities, maayos lahat. You're gonna have time. You're gonna be given
Yeah,
everything.
you can just juxtapose the picture of
Yeah.
his cell in The Hague, very well appointed room, and the cell of the people who are crowded in jails when they are brought to a jail here. So
Hilton Hague nga eh. Hilton Hague yung sarcastic. Yeah, I mean, although
so yeah,
if he's convicted, he'll be in a different facility, but at least the detention
yeah,
facility is pretty.
that's why we have to teach our people. That's why due process is important because can you just imagine? They are now demanding due process for him. But how about those who were killed? 30,000. If you take the high end of the number of the figures, they were not given due process. So due process is important.
Yeah, I mean, because you will need it one day for yourself also. Like, parang ganun eh. Kasi parating nilang argument na, oh, ayaw niya sa drug war ni Digong kasi wala kang addict sa pamilya. So, it's sabi ko, oh, ayaw niya sa due process kasi hindi niya. You get what I'm saying? Like, because there are all sorts of that kind of ridiculous arguments throughout the years that they try to use. Now, Justice, in terms of yung, obviously, yung ICC cases here, these are all principles, right? Maximum 11 or 9, whatever, pwedeng mahuli dito. But obviously, hindi mangyayari yung basically yung killing machine or killing fields sa Manila if hindi daan-daan na ating miyembro ng kapulisan and mga others involved. Is there a kind of a way for them to be reintegrated security sector reform wise whereby you're not gonna have mass resignation or even worse backlash or something? This is quite sensitive issue, right? Because the ICC is just gonna go after the principals. But those are the
Well,
architects. What
yeah.
about the everyday executors, enforcers, right?
Well, I think there was just a small group that were doing the killing. This this was the group that was
Special death
imported
squad
from
talaga yun.
Davao. Yeah, this was the death squad that was imported from Davao. Second, we can look at our military right after martial law. They had this mindset that uh, human rights are not important, but they went through educational. They were taught human rights, and finally they've imbibed human rights. No, so it can be done. We can solve the problem in the PNP. It will take time, but we can teach them the value of human right, due process, and I think we should start that already because we don't want this to happen again.
Again, thank you so much, Justice. I know super delayed tayo, so I took much away time from you. But I cannot part with you without talking about the greatest president of all, Donald Trump. As we speak, Pete Hegseth is there in Manila. Pete signal chat chat room Hegseth. I think people should know what's the reference point. So I'm in the European Union right now, and one of the things I'm gonna discuss with our friends in the Parliament, whatever commission, whatever, is that we need to work more together, right? Philippines and Europe
Yes.
and all. Europe is big and they want to give us a free trade agreement. Generally, as a progressive, I don't like FTAs, but I think with EU we'll get a very good deal if God willing things push through. How important it is for the Philippines to position itself as a champion of rules-based order, West Philippine Sea, ngayon ito ang issue ng ICC. And from there, how important is for us to have a strong relationship with Europe? Basically, what message do you want me to carry to our good friends here in Brussels, Justice?
Well, Europe really was responsible for that provision in the UN Charter that all disputes between states must be settled by peaceful means. You cannot use force or threat of force to settle a dispute between states. And for us, we really need that kind of order because we are facing threats from a nuclear armed state, from China. So we sympathize with them, what's happening in Ukraine, and we feel that, and we know that position is the correct position to prevent wars, no, to prevent countries from invading another. Just because you are nuclear armed, you can just invade another country. That will really destroy the world. So we have to support the EU for that, and they should also support us because the same thing is happening in the South China Sea.
I mean, the book The Internationalist is now, I think, a favorite of
Yes.
all of us, right? Not only you, even Farid Zakaria. I saw he did a special on that. Just to remind people, why is it important for us to have a rules-based international order? Kasi I've heard many Pinoy saying ganyan talaga, kung superpower, you get away with it. I remember nung time na in-invade pang Ukraine, I heard someone close to me saying, ginusto niya, you don't poke the bear. Yung ganyan mindset na parang you got it coming because you pick on the wrong country. Yung mga ganun mindset. Can you remind people how internationalism is really our best chance not to be gobbled up?
Yeah,
Like what
that's
we
the
were
only way we can
before.
survive. For countries that are small or even middle powers which do not have nuclear weapons, they really have to rely on international law. So we just have to shore up the support for the UN Charter.
And of course, we need international law if people like Harry Roque are gonna have a chance to travel all around the world and seek exile. It's the best way. Actually, the good thing heard is ang taas ng mga nagre-register mag-LLM ngayon sa because of what's happening. I mean, masarap maging LLM student nowadays bilang isang Pilipino. So I really encourage a lot of people to also look at options. Maybe down the road, I'll also look at that option down the road. LLM at The Hague. Exciting times, amazing times. Thank you so much, Justice Carpio, for the time you have put. I know it took us almost 1 hour to get this going. Your patience, your love, and dedication is very much appreciated. And looking forward, Justice, hopefully in the near future, once you're back from your other engagements, in person na naman tayo. Because bestseller yung ano natin yung press conference natin with Sir Ronald. Although ang daldal ni Ronald though, like uh, someone did a quantitative analysis, he did 68% of the entire talk. Like, it's like, hey, like, Ronald, ano? Ikaw kasi kasalanan mo yung justice. Sabi niya, this is not legal this is political tuloy. Si Ronald, go na siya. Like, oh my God. But I'm glad that we have clarified many things. Among others, hindi po rendition ang nangyari at hindi maging valid ground for that. Sorry, sorry, Justice, I have to come back to that. Ang dami kasing nagalit doon sa press conference natin. Like, they loved it, but I said, wait lang, pag DDS makinig baka they might twist what you're saying. So, thank you for this fifth follow-up since that historic press conference together. Mabuhay ka, Justice Carpio. Let's keep in touch. And it's always lovely to have you. God bless po.
Thank you. Thank you to our viewers.
Salamat po.